Hello everybody and welcome back to my channel. I'm Andrea.M. and this is Real Crime Down Under. And we are back to our Real Crime and Coffee Tuesday, so grab a cuppa. I might say grab a snack, but as today's case is food related and poisoning related, I don't know if you're really going to want a snack while you're watching this one, but definitely grab some sort of a beverage and join me for today's case. I would also like to ask you, if you've not done so already, if you could please consider subscribing to my channel, hit the notification bell, hit the like button, and drop a comment or two in the comment section below. Also, as you guys know, I've gone international, so if there are any cases at all that you would like to see me cover here on the channel, please make a suggestion. You'll get a shout out if you make a suggestion, and I will cover the case that you are interested in. So without further preamble, let's just get into today's case. In today's case, we are looking at an active and an ongoing case that has been making the news here in Australia and globally since July 29th of this year, when a woman from Leongatha named Erin Patterson allegedly served her in-laws and other relatives a beef Wellington pie. And this beef Wellington pie turned out to be laced with the deadly A-amantine toxin, and it is allegedly thought that the presence of the A-amantine toxin was due also to the presence of death cap mushrooms that had been allegedly used in the dish. And guys, I need to keep saying alleged because this is an ongoing case and all of the evidence and everything is not quite together yet. So as not to be prejudicial to the trial that is upcoming, I need to keep saying allegedly, and it also kind of covers my butt a little bit too, so that I'm not making claims that are unsubstantiated. So I'm going to be saying allegedly a lot as I present this video, so please bear with me for that. So you might be asking yourself, well, what is a death cap mushroom or why are they so deadly? And they are called a death cap for a reason. So as the case unfurled, it came to light that 3 people ended up deceased and 1 was in a critical condition in a Melbourne hospital from the suspected mushroom poisoning after eating the beef Wellington pie. Fortunately, the gentleman did survive and is now recovering at home after many weeks in intensive care, but he is still looking at a lot of ongoing treatment. So I just want to say our hearts go out to you, and I hope that you have a full recovery and that you are feeling better very soon. So the police have said that the symptoms were consistent with having eaten death cap mushrooms, although at the time that this information was gathered, the cause of death had not yet been confirmed, but I think since then it has been. So the death cap mushroom itself is called the Amanita phalloides, and is responsible for about 90% of mushroom-related deaths globally. It can be mistaken for edible mushroom varieties such as a field mushroom or a straw mushroom. And I'm going to pop some pictures in here of these deadly little delights. So everybody knows what they look like, and please do not eat these mushrooms. There is no way you can eat any part of this mushroom. So Dr. Michael Taylor says it's quite upright, it's very bright white, and it's eye-catching. And Dr. Michael Taylor is a mycology expert at Flinders University. So the cap of a typical death cap mushroom may measure about 10 centimetres across, Dr. Taylor says. Half of what would be toxic, probably enough to kill a person. That might be, once it's cooked down, a mouthful, maybe 2 or 3 mouthfuls of actual mushroom at the absolute most. So it does not take very much of this mushroom to make you deathly ill. He also goes on to say the toxicity of individual mushrooms may vary depending on the geographical location. Death cap mushrooms are not native to Australia and are usually only found in Victoria and the Australian Capital Territory. So now we're looking at what are the effects of eating a death cap mushroom. According to Dr. Ian Musgrave, a molecular pharmacologist at the University of Adelaide, death cap mushrooms contain 3 broad classes of toxins: the amatotoxins, the phallotoxins, and the virotoxins. The most toxic of all the toxins found in the mushroom is the amatotoxin, known as A-amantin. Amatotoxins inhibit an enzyme called RNA polymerase II, preventing cells from carrying out essential functions such as creating proteins. The toxin cannot be destroyed by cooking or drying. So it doesn't matter if you cook these mushrooms, if you dry them out, they are still extremely deadly. You cannot eat these at all. So please take note of the photos and do not ever even try these mushrooms, not even for a joke, because they are seriously bad. Once a death cap is eaten, people are often asymptomatic for several hours before its effects become apparent. Nausea, diarrhea, and other symptoms of gastrointestinal upset develop from about 6 to 12 hours after ingestion, though this may occur sooner if a higher dose is ingested, Dr. Taylor says. So the primary site of A-amantin toxicity is the liver, where it first travels after being absorbed from the lining of the gastrointestinal tract. And this is why these mushrooms are so toxic. It'll stop the liver functioning, and then after a period of time, the liver will die. This is also according to Dr. Taylor. The toxin has the same effect on all the cells it interacts with. So quite often you have a period of remission where you stop being immediately sick, the nausea calms down, you start feeling pretty well again, Dr. Taylor says. Then you hit that 24-hour plus mark. If you've had a relatively low dose, that's when you start to get the secondary toxic effects. The liver and the other organs start to shut down. Within 1 to 7 days of ingestion, the death cap can result in liver failure, kidney failure, encephalopathy, and death. So, can this poisoning be treated, and how can it be treated? So, Dr. Musgrave goes on to say that antidotes to A-amantin are mostly not very good. The binding of the amatoxin to its target is largely irreversible, and it's very hard to get around. So the fact that one of the guests actually survived the mushroom lunch is pretty amazing, and all I can say is this man must be made of steel, and I really hope that he does make a full recovery soon. So a compound called psilocybin can be used to treat the death cap poisoning. It works by competitively binding to the same receptors in the liver that the A-amantin binds to. But it is only effective if administered before the toxin starts to irreversibly bind to the cells, which may begin before a person even knows that they are sick or showing symptoms depending on the dose. So time is of the essence, and because there is quite a large period of time between ingestion and symptoms onsetting, it's usually too late. So the quicker that you are administered it, the far better is the prognosis. And Dr. Taylor says this. Some people have had psilocybin and it's reduced the degree of organ damage. So maybe the gentleman who survived didn't have quite as many mushrooms in his helping of the pie. That will come out, I would say, as the case progresses. So people treated with death cap poisoning in hospital may also be given supportive care in the form of intravenous fluids and activated charcoal. In the case of liver failure, and if a patient is well enough, they may receive a liver transplant. But the way the transplant lists are, they would be very lucky to be able to do that. So it is a very deadly poison. Scientists announced in May that they had identified the potential antidote to the death cap toxin. Research identified that indocyanine green, a medical imaging dye, appeared to block the toxic effects of amanitin. The research has not been tested on humans as yet. So the indocyanine green appears to work in a similar way to the psilocybin, Taylor says. He suggests that there has been limited research invested into antidotes for death cap toxins because of the relatively small number of poisonings globally. He also goes on to say, I can't imagine that a drug company would ever put enormous amounts of time and energy into developing one, because it may only be used 50 or 100 times per year. Which now brings us to the suspected poisoner and the mushroom chef, or the mushroom lady as the media has described her in recent months, Erin Patterson. So Erin Patterson was born in Victoria in 1975. The exact date of her birth is still unknown. Also, not much else is known about her family, but it is believed that she grew up in Leongatha, Victoria. So there isn't a lot known about Erin as yet. This is a very recent case, but as updates come to hand, as I said before, I will let you guys know. So according to sources, Erin Patterson was married to Simon Patterson, whom she met in college. The duo tied the knot somewhere before 2006 and gave birth to a son and a daughter. So everything was going really well for the Pattersons for the first few years, but eventually differences were created between them, leading to a divorce. For the sake of their children, Erin and Simon decided to maintain a friendship, so their marriage ended, but the couple did stay strong. As the case has developed, however, reports of Patterson and her ex-husband remaining friendly have come under scrutiny, as investigators have reason to believe Patterson had allegedly tried to poison her ex-husband on at least 3 other occasions, beside the deadly mushroom family lunch that took the lives of his parents, Don and Gail Patterson, and the life of his aunt, Heather Wilkinson. Heather's husband, Ian, is the sole survivor of the incident. Erin's ex-husband, Simon, was also invited to attend the lunch, but decided not to attend at the last minute. And this may have been due to what investigators have uncovered during the many weeks of the investigation since the 29th of July. According to news reports published on the 4th of November 2023, according to journalist Liam Beattie. So murder-accused mushroom cook Erin Patterson, accused of attempting to murder her ex-husband 4 times. The ex-husband of the accused mushroom murderer, Erin Patterson, appears to have disappeared after she was charged with making 4 attempts on his life. It is alleged that Simon Patterson hasn't been home since his ex was charged with making 4 attempts on his life. A neighbour revealed Simon Patterson hasn't returned to his house in several days as the community grapples with the bloody awful allegations. The neighbour would also go on to say he is a nice guy and it's just bloody awful. And the neighbours said this on condition of anonymity, so his name is being withheld for his privacy. So the news that has come to hand within the last couple of weeks is that Erin Patterson has been charged with homicide after she cooked the mushroom meal that left 3 people deceased and 1 in hospital. It is alleged that Ms. Patterson has attempted to commit homicide on her ex-husband, Simon, 4 times over 3 years. And this comes from NCA Newswire David Garrity. Miss Patterson is alleged to have attempted to take the life of her ex-husband Simon 4 times over the last 3 years. Police allege it was her 4th attempt at taking the life of her 48-year-old former partner who pulled out of the lunch at the last minute. Erin Patterson, 49, made a brief appearance in the Latrobe Valley Magistrates Court during the first couple of weeks of November on a Friday morning after a police raid at her home on Thursday led to charges in the alleged poisoning case. So as I've said before, she has actually been charged at this point with 3 counts of homicide and 5 counts of attempted homicide. Charge sheets released to the media by Magistrate Tim Walsh indicate police allege Ms. Patterson attempted to kill her ex-husband 4 times between 2021 and 2023. The alleged attempts occurred between November 16 and 17, 2021, May 25 and 27, 2022, and on September 9 last year, making the date of July 29, alleged attempt number 4. And as we already know, this happened after Mr. Patterson's parent, aunt, and her husband fell ill after eating a meal at the Leongatha home of Erin Patterson. Mr. Patterson was expected to attend the lunch, which was hosted as part of, and I can't even believe this, but I'm kind of not surprised, as part of a church meditation process for their relationship. But he pulled out at the last minute. And I mean, this is just my thoughts. Obviously, if he has eaten at her home before and has become gravely ill 3 other times, I'm thinking that's probably why the gentleman decided to pull out. It's just a shame that he sort of didn't say to his parents, oh, look, I don't think you should go. Maybe he did. We don't know, he didn't, but it's just a shame that anybody turned up to that lunch at all after what's happened. It's very tragic. So his parents, Gail and Don Patterson, both aged 70, and his aunt, Heather Wilkinson, 66, lost their lives in hospital days after the alleged poisoning. Mrs. Wilkinson's husband, Ian, spent several weeks in hospital in a critical condition following the lunch. So you may be wondering, well, what was Erin's version of events? And I'm very cynical and sceptical when it comes to this woman, and you'll start to see why as we get more into the case about her. As you'd expect, she pled innocent. In her first statement to police as the case unfolded, she told them. In a statement sent to Victoria Police, she said the mushrooms are a mixture of button mushrooms brought at a supermarket chain and dried mushrooms brought at an Asian grocery store. She said the dried mushrooms had been brought in Melbourne months before the tragedy, though she was unable to give further details. So, Ms. Patterson's written statement was actually obtained by the ABC and gives her first detailed account of what she says happened after the fatal beef Wellington lunch at her home in Leongatha on July 29. The mother of 2 said she served the meal and allowed her guests, her former in-laws, Don and Gail Patterson, and Gail's sister Heather, and her pastor husband Ian, to choose what plates they would like that she'd already served up. So, choose your own plates. Makes it look as though all of the dishes were the same, just saying. She then took the last plate and ate a serve herself. Don and Gail Patterson and Mr. and Mrs. Wilkinson fell violently ill several hours after eating the meal, which police suspect contained the poisonous death cap mushrooms. At this time, Ian Wilkinson was in a critical condition but still alive. Erin would go on to say this: I am now wanting to clear up the record because I have become extremely stressed and overwhelmed by the deaths of my loved ones. And this is what Erin said in her statement. She would also go on to say, I'm hoping this statement might help in some way. I believe if people understood the background more, they would not be so quick to rush to judgment. She also says, I am now devastated to think that these mushrooms may have contributed to the illnesses suffered by my loved ones. I really want to repeat that I had absolutely no reason to hurt these people whom I loved. Okay. Erin Patterson, 48, did not return to her Leongatha home on Thursday after telling the media just before 10 a.m. local time that she was visiting with her lawyers. So this case does take a little bit of a dark turn as it progresses. So she actually went missing after the deaths occurred. Miss Patterson said she was also hospitalised after the lunch with bad stomach pains and diarrhoea. She said that she was put on a saline drip and given a liver protective drug before being taken by ambulance from the Leongatha Hospital to the Monash Medical Centre in Melbourne on the 31st of July. The Gippsland Southern Health Service has confirmed that a fifth person who presented at Leongatha Hospital on July 30 with suspected food poisoning later returned and was sent to Monash. So we're assuming that may have been Erin. Miss Patterson also revealed in her statement that her children were not at the lunch and had gone to the movies. How convenient. Just forget I said that. Simon Patterson, the ex-husband of the deadly mushroom cook. Erin Patterson came down ill with a mystery stomach illness last year, as we explored a little earlier. Erin also said that her kids had eaten leftovers from the lunch the following night, but she had picked the mushrooms out because they don't like mushrooms. I don't know if I'm... Okay, this is just my thinking, but that toxin is so deadly, wouldn't you think it would kind of leach out of the mushrooms into the rest of the food? And it was made in a pie, so to me that would be pretty difficult to just pick these mushrooms out of it. So what I'm wondering, and this is just my speculation, this is where my mind goes, was there two pies? Was there a pie with mushrooms and a pie without? Because I would think if you cooked something that had these toxic mushrooms in it, that some of that would have to leach out into the other ingredients. So I'm wondering, was there two pies? That's just me. I'm just wondering that. Nobody said there were two. Don't get me wrong. That's what I'm wondering. And it's going to be interesting to see what comes out as the case does progress. Miss Patterson also admitted that the food dehydrator found at the tip by the police and being forensically tested did belong to her. She also said that she dumped it after her ex-husband Simon asked, "Is this what you used to poison them?" And I think Simon has a legitimate reason for asking that. Miss Patterson said she then panicked and was worried that she would lose the custody of their children. So for all her protestations of innocence, questions were still being asked. If the dried mushrooms had been purchased months before, why the food dehydrator at all? If she felt she had nothing to hide, why get rid of the food dehydrator? And as for her pleading ignorance as to how the poisonings occurred and also claiming herself to have become ill, has come to light in recent weeks that Erin Patterson is also allegedly possessed of a genius-like IQ. So, according to her former work colleagues, where Erin once worked as, get ready for takeoff, get ready to be surprised, Erin once worked as an air traffic controller. I know, an air traffic controller. And no, I'm honestly not making this up. I actually found it during my research. And it bowled me over, I just have to say that. So Erin Patterson worked as an air traffic controller and was regarded as highly intelligent by her peers, it has emerged. Patterson undertook an air traffic control course in 2001, and this was reported on by the Herald Sun newspaper. She went on to work at Tullamarine Airport before leaving the job in 2002, a former colleague said. This former colleague would also go on to say she was rated in the field and was actually responsible for running airspace for a while, he said. This person would also go on to say she's bright, very bright, and much brighter than people might think. She managed to get guys wrapped around her little finger, although she was always a little unkempt, he would say. The ex-colleague said when the news broke about the deaths in Leongatha in Victoria's Gippsland region, fellow air traffic controllers thought the woman at the centre of the beef Wellington meal looked very familiar. He would go on to say that even though Erin had put on a little weight, she looked very familiar, and she had the same first name, and we were 90 to 95% convinced that at that point it was the same person. Then we saw in the papers that her mother's name was Scudder. Then we were completely sure, he said. Air Services Australia confirmed Patterson worked for them between February 2001 and November 2002. So this woman is actually very, very smart, genius level smart, which leads me to believe that she knew exactly what she was doing, allegedly. Patterson, 48, has appeared in court where she has been charged with 3 counts of homicide and 5 counts of attempted homicide. I think we covered that before. Court documents revealed Patterson is accused of attempting to kill her husband Simon on 4 other occasions, as we already knew. The court heard much of the case will centre on the alleged poisoner's computer data, with specialised dogs used in a search on her property this week. Patterson made no attempt at bail, with Magistrate Tim Walsh telling the alleged poisoner he had no power to grant it, even if she applied. "Good morning, Miss Patterson," Magistrate Tim Walsh said as he entered the courtroom. She replied, "Good morning," in a very quiet voice. Prosecutors requested a 20-week delay before her next appearance, citing the need to analyse some computer equipment seized yesterday. This was questioned by Magistrate Walsh, who asked why they needed a delay when the informant, Acting Detective Sergeant Stephen Eppingstall, was confident enough to charge this woman. "It's a triple homicide," he exclaimed, before agreeing to allow the delay. Miss Patterson's lawyer, Ben Doog, told the court his law firm had been engaged for a while and hinted the case could well go on for a very long time. He is expected to make an application for bail over the coming weeks. As Mr. Walsh explained, he did not have the power to grant her bail. Miss Patterson could be seen nodding repeatedly. It is also said Patterson appeared very dishevelled as she fronted court for the very first time. She was dressed in a beige jumper and wearing tortoise-shell-coloured glasses. Patterson's hair appeared matted and untidy as she sat behind the bulletproof glass in the prison dock, flanked by 2 burly guards who were wearing bulletproof vests and protective glasses. Patterson looked uneasy as she watched the short filing and hearing. And they would also go on to report that Patterson spoke quietly when addressed by the magistrate, nodding and forcing an uncomfortable smile. So that seems to me the behaviour of somebody who knows they've been caught and is not very sure of themselves at all. This is also just my mere speculation, but the appearance of Miss Patterson could be down to a few things. She may be suffering depression because of what she's done, or it may be an attempt to try and bring in an insanity plea. And they seem to think that if they're looking dishevelled and unkempt, that, you know, people may start to question their sanity. So it could also be a strategic move on her part, because remember, she is very smart. Not saying it is, that's just my speculation and just the experience of the cases that I've researched and covered before. It has been used as a strategy in other cases. Not saying it is in this one, but it's just something to think about. So, Homicide Squad detectives asked the court for 20 weeks to compile their brief of evidence against the alleged triple homicide. A police prosecutor said the time was needed to allow police to forensically analyse new evidence they retrieved from her home on Thursday. A specialist police team of investigators on Thursday searched Miss Patterson's home, where the fatal family lunch took place on July 29. Forensic experts were spotted rifling through a crowded garage attached to the home and combing through the interior of her car in the property's driveway. Detectives also employed specially trained technology detector dogs that can sniff out USB memory keys and SIM cards to help scour the property. So, adding to the request of a stay of 20 weeks, the court heard detectives planned to file a The court heard detectives plan to file a voluminous brief of evidence against Ms. Patterson. Mr. Doog told the court his client was aware the case against her was likely to include a wealth of material. Much of it, he revealed, had not even been presented to him due to it not being analysed by the police as yet. So you need to realise this is an ongoing case. They're still going through all the evidence, so they haven't really had time to analyse everything they've found yet. And it sounds like they've found quite a bit, so it's going to be interesting to follow this as it progresses. Mr. Walsh took a moment to explain the situation to Patterson, who smiled and thanked him. The important thing is this matter progress through the system as quickly as reasonably possible, Mr. Doog said. He also said it was unfortunate that he could not make an application for bail. Really? We've seen before what happens when they let people go or they let people out on bail. They disappear. I honestly don't think, my opinion again, I honestly don't think this lady should be given bail. Not after what she's allegedly done. No supporters of the accused poisoner could be seen in the packed courtroom as dozens of other observants watched the 5-minute proceeding on the video link. So her next court appearance is likely to revolve around what witnesses might be called at a preliminary hearing, and the end of that hearing will determine when and if her case is pushed into the Supreme Court of Victoria, and that's where she would actually go on trial. So the trial is actually not expected to go ahead until late next year, at its best, due to Victoria's clogged court lists. We covered this before, but I'll say it again. She also faces 5 attempted homicide charges, including 2 over the lunch. And as we've said before, they relate to Ian Wilkinson and her ex-husband Simon Patterson. And as we already know, Simon pulled out of the lunch at the last minute. So as we explored briefly, they are now really looking into the fact that she was a genius and was an air traffic controller responsible for running airspace before settling down in the country. And just a little side note to this, in the research I've been doing, death cap mushrooms are found in plentiful supply all over the Victorian region of Australia. And this is in particular where oak trees are also planted. And in my research and preparation for this case, we have found that oak trees are in plentiful supply in Mossvale Park, Leongatha, the same suburb Erin Patterson was living in for years. And the other thing about death cap mushrooms is really interesting, that they actually need oak trees in order to grow in such a plentiful supply, because the death cap mushroom and the oak trees share a symbiotic relationship. And those trees are right on hand in the same suburb that Erin Patterson lived in. So it was actually on November 2nd of this year that news broke that Erin Patterson had in fact been charged with 3 counts of homicide and the 5 counts of attempted homicide. And as we said before, and please keep these unfortunate people and their surviving loved ones in your thoughts and prayers. It needs to be said again because these people can't be forgotten. The accused former in-laws, Gail Patterson, 70, Don Patterson, 70, Gail's sister Heather Wilkinson, 66, all passed away in hospital days after the lunch, where the beef Wellington was served. Heather's husband, Ian Wilkinson, 68, also at the lunch, was released from Austin Hospital last month after 7 weeks of treatment, most of which he spent in a coma. And to wrap it all up, as we said before, the investigators believe the group ate death cap mushrooms. So the charges of November 2nd are just the next step in what has been an incredibly complex, methodical and thorough investigation by Homicide Squad detectives, said Detective Inspector Dean Thomas from the Homicide Squad. He also says, I know that many people will no doubt have many unanswered questions about this matter. However, I urge people to be especially mindful of unnecessary speculation and do not share misinformation. So my little thoughts and theories that I've put forward during this video is just things that I've been thinking about. It doesn't bear anything on the case. It's just what I was thinking. So earlier in the day at Patterson's house, detectives were seen walking in and out of the garage with bags of evidence and leading specialist technology detector dogs, as we talked about before, to and from the property. An armchair on the back deck and bushes close to the house received particular close attention from the canines. Patterson's car was also searched several times, as we said before. Even though police had previously named Patterson as a suspect because she cooked the meal that is still suspected of poisoning the group, she strenuously denied wrongdoing and said she could not explain how the meal could have caused the group's illnesses and deaths. Patterson and her estranged husband Simon have been living separately for a number of years. And as we said, of the believed poisoning of her estranged husband, what actually happened to him was that he experienced serious gut problems that left him in intensive care for 3 weeks last year. So Patterson, a stay-at-home mum, gave a statement to police in August about the July lunch with her in-laws, documenting her version of events and refuting that what she claims has been wildly inaccurate media report. Police have conducted forensic testing of the dehydrator but have not released the results. And that is where the case runs out for now, and that is where we leave the case of Erin Patterson, or the Mushroom Lady as she has come to be known. As more details are released and the trial date approaches, I will keep you guys updated. And sorry if the information I've given you seems a little bit disjointed in parts, as a lot of it was repeated. But yeah, she has been charged with 8 counts all up of attempted homicide and homicide in relation to the people who have become deceased due to the lunch they consumed at her home. So I would love to hear your thoughts and theories on this case. And please don't come for me. I have just reported on what I could find from news reports, online, news stories I've seen. I've gotten all of this from reliable news sources, and my little musings are just my musings. This is just the little things that I think. They don't have any bearing on the case. There's no proof to that. It's just my opinion and the things that I was thinking about. And I'd say it's probably similar to what a lot of other people have probably thought as the case progresses as well. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope you got something out of it. If you did, please don't forget to leave a like and a comment, and please subscribe if you haven't done so already. We have a lot more coming up on the channel, a lot more Real Crime Down Under and Real Crime Asia Pacifica. There's going to be more Oz Files because I haven't done any of those in a while, and I'd really love to get back to that. We have a Scary Story channel, which is going to be becoming operational this week, and I'll let you guys know when, but everything's going to be linked below if you'd like to go and follow my Scary Story Narrations on my new channel called Tales from Beyond the Veil. It's going to be just a fun channel where you can just relax and listen to scary stories. Some of them are stories that I have written in the past on an app called Wattpad. They're actually novels that I published on there. And you can also send your scary stories to me, which I will also give you a link to in the description box below. So this is the first ongoing case I've done in a while. I think it's going to be very interesting as it evolves. So please keep watch for updates on the case of the murderous mushroom lunch. And until my next video, stay safe everybody, and I will see you all again very, very soon. Bye.